Hello, everybody. I am MK,
And I'm Sam.
and this is East Coast Haunts. We are coming to you. Unfortunately, we are not together, but we were together this weekend,
Yes, we were.
and we had a hell of a time. Sam planned the most beautiful weekend in New Jersey. Um, Good to be back on my old stomping grounds. Uh, and we had a little paranormal
Field trip.
excursion. Yeah, field trip.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. So we just thought that we would tell you guys a little bit about it. We went to the Paranormal Museum in Asbury Park. And out of respect for the museum and, the owners and the tour guides, we're not going to tell you any specific stories about the artifacts that they have. You're going to have to take the tour to find out all the juicy details and the stories behind them. But we are going to touch on a couple of things that they went over in the tour and kind of give you like a general idea of what you can expect from the museum tour. Shout out to our tour guide, Arun. He was excellent. He was thoroughly knowledgeable about everything, and we really had a blast with him. So if you're listening, thank you so much. You were a great tour guide.
Yeah, he was awesome. He was great.
So this paranormal museum, from what I can see, opened up like semi recently. I think it was in the early 2000s. And it's also connected to like a paranormal bookshop, which we went crazy in.
That was like the intersection of all your interests. It was crazy.
So fun.
She did some damage. She did some collateral,
I sure did.
damage.
I got a book on like how to ghost hunt. So another live investigation coming to you hopefully this summer. I know we discussed like going to the Lizzie Borden house, so maybe
terrifying.
maybe we could do that. So anyway, and I've got some books on like East Coast haunts, lol.
Trademark.
Trademark. And we'll have some good ideas for some episodes coming up. So let me tell you a little bit about the museum. It's owned by a woman named Kathy Kelly, and she is a paranormal enthusiast. I believe she's also like a little bit of maybe not a little bit, but a true like ghost hunter herself, because when we visited the museum, our tour guide was telling us about how she is running active investigations on some of the artifacts that are in the museum. So that's pretty cool. She opened the Paranormal Book and Curiosities in 2008, and then the Paranormal Museum followed soon after. So very exciting stuff. She's also a history buff, so there were some pretty cool like historical artifacts in the museum as well. And Sam, do you want to tell them like a little bit about the different tours that they can take?
Yes. So when you go to sign up for a tour, you can only do it in a group. So you can have a group. I mean, I guess if you wanted to do it by yourself, you can, but if you split it up into a group, it's like, a better value. So you can have anything from 1 to 6 people in your group. And like I was saying, when you sign up, you get to choose between 4 different categories. Let's see if I can remember them off the top of my head. We, of course, chose I think it was like haunted history.
Yeah, haunts.
Yeah, exactly. So our tour focused a little bit more on like the history side of things, and the older artifacts, which was really cool. There's also the dolls and possession, I believe, was one of the categories. Dolls and like demon possession.
Yes, dolls and demonic possession.
Yes. Okay. And then there was one that was, I think it was like crime and punishment, right?
Yes.
And then what was the 4th one?
I believe it was witchcraft.
Okay, yeah, witchcraft, yeah. So you can kind of choose between those 4, and they'll cater your tour to whichever you're most interested in, which was really, really cool. Of course, we had to choose, haunted history, because that's what we do here. So it was really cool that you were able to kind of cater your tour to your biggest interests.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was awesome. It was really cool. Definitely would love to go back and take one of the other tours, because they've definitely got some creepy dolls there.
Yeah.
A little bit about it. But yeah, so from their website, when you go there, you can you can expect to see a lot of uh exhibits, I guess, artifacts. It's a small museum, like it's only about 2 floors, but man, do they cram a lot into this
Yeah.
little space. You're definitely getting your money's worth. There's tons of haunted objects that have been donated to the museum because people felt uncomfortable with them after they somehow came into their possession. Like we said, haunted dolls,
Mhm.
cryptids. So, our boy the Jersey Devil was heavily featured and we were very excited to see him. There's real human remains, like there's a couple of real human skulls.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely crazy. There was a prison door from the Ohio State Penitentiary, like the actual prison door used in the cells, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a minute.
Mhm.
Ouija boards and actual items that were used in like occult rituals that definitely have some sort of spirit or presence attached to them. So, that being said, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, like the structure of the tour and
Right.
like a general idea of what you can see. So, our tour started off downstairs, and there's a whole hallway filled with stuff from the Jersey Devil because this is a Jersey museum after
They
all.
have to.
Yeah, it is like Jersey's claim to fame, like the Jersey Italians, the mob, and the Jersey Devil.
Yes. And
Those are
Snooki.
and Bagels, yeah. Oh, and Snooki, Jersey Shore. We've got a few claims to fame, but
They're all on an equal level of importance.
yes. um so he started by telling us the background of the Jersey Devil, which, if you're interested in hearing, either go take this tour or listen to episode number 2.
Or both.
Or both. Both is good too. There were like a lot of depictions of them. They actually had a real picture of the lead's house and a brick from the foundation that they were given. They had like a real vampire hunting kit, which I don't know if would you consider a vampire a cryptid?
Um, I I wouldn't. I would consider that more a monster.
I agree.
But I can see an argument being made for them being a cryptid. And
I
it was so funny. There was like, I won't get into details, but like the garlic in a jar was so funny.
They had like garlic in a jar and like silver bullets. So I guess it was like a combo vampire and werewolf hunting kit. Then like going up the stairs into the rest of the museum, there's like kind of a timeline of like significant events that occurred in like the paranormal world, like the first ever recorded haunting in like a Roman bathhouse and like stuff
Yeah,
like that.
from like
Um
literally like the Egyptian times to now.
yeah, that was pretty cool. I definitely could have stayed there like all day and read all the plaques.
Yeah.
I actually would like love to look into like the history of how like paranormal study developed,
Yeah.
but another story for another time. And
Bookmark
now
that.
now in order to like kind of fill this episode, because we don't want to give you too much information about the actual items on display, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Ohio State Penitentiary because the next thing that's featured on the tour is the actual door that Kathy Kelly collected from the Ohio State Penitentiary. So, if you didn't know, the Ohio State Penitentiary is located in Columbus, Ohio, and it operated from 1834 to 1984. So it was open for 150 years.
Oh wow.
And it was absolutely notorious for its harsh conditions, overcrowding, and its many, many notorious criminals that stayed there. And today it's known to be an extremely haunted and paranormally active site. So, the Ohio State Penitentiary was built to replace a smaller prison in Columbus, which is exactly like how Eastern State Penitentiary came around. Um, and it was originally only designed to hold about 300 inmates, but at its peak, it ended up holding, I believe, like 3,000 inmates. So it, again, like, this should come as a surprise to no one. It's a 19th century penitentiary. It was prone to overcrowding and horrible health conditions. The prisoners were subjected to forced labor. There was little regard for health and safety, and there were brutal punishments and executions. We're going to talk a little bit about like one specific method of execution, which really freaks me out,
Oh
but
no.
it must
Yeah,
be
it was
spoken about.
it was like pretty much worst case scenario as far as prisons go, I feel.
Yeah,
Like
always.
there were no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
Yes. So as we enter now the 20th century, the population within the prison and outside of the prison is skyrocketing due to like the Industrial Revolution and, the overall lifespan of humans
Yes.
increasing. I'm not a history major, but I believe that's
Etc.
what happened. And the penitentiary, because it became so overcrowded, it started experiencing higher and higher rates of violence and like outbreaks and riots and stuff like that. So as punishment for the people that were inciting these riots, they had like super harsh solitary confinement conditions. And again, like very similar to Eastern State Penitentiary, where they were locked in these uh cells and had like literally no human contact. Like the guards would wear socks over their shoes so that they
Oh my God.
wouldn't hear anything. Um, and then the main form of execution was by electric chair
Oh yeah.
until that was banned. And like I think the last time they did it was like the 60s. So it really wasn't.
Yeah, I always forget how fairly recent the electric chair was.
Oh, it's so creepy. And they had one called Old Sparky that like
Was this at the Ohio State Penitentiary?
yeah, Old Sparky.
I've heard of Old Sparky. Are there multiple Old Sparkies?
I don't know. I know this is like the Halloween Horror Nights nerd in me coming out, but I know that they have like a prop electric chair that's called Old Smoky.
Okay,
Um,
maybe that's what I was thinking of.
but who knows? So, one very notable event that happened at the Ohio State Penitentiary was the tragic fire of 1930. It was one of the most deadly prison fires in the US history. It happened on April 21st, 1930, and over 300 prisoners died because this fire broke out. It's the cause of it's unknown. Some speculate that it was supposed to be like a homemade bomb that was detonated at the incorrect time, and it literally spread like wildfire. Some of the guests, some of
Yes. You could call them that.
guests against their will. No, some of the guards just completely fled and were looking out for their own safety. And this prison had a unique set of keys for every cell. So it was like not one big like open and release the doors. It was like manually going through and unlocking every door.
Which is
So
crazy. And wasn't that like standard practice for the time?
I'm sure it was. I think it was like either that or you had a master control that opened all the doors.
Okay.
Um, but I believe that
Brody has to add something to the narrative.
he said he will not stand silent while this injustice occurs. And so eventually that led to like a major reevaluation of like prison safety conditions and safety standards. But there's stories that like prisoners helped the guards that stayed unlock the doors and stuff like that. In 1968, the prison underwent like an evaluation and was declared inhumane and outdated. And it officially shut down in 1984. And all of the prisoners that were in Ohio State Penitentiary at the time, they were relocated to Lucasville Prison and other prisons in the area. There were a bunch of notable prisoners incarcerated at Ohio State Penitentiary. First of all, I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, but I had, and like this murder case is one of the ones that like fascinates me. Have you ever heard of Sam Shepard?
Um Is that from no? What? Who? I feel like I recognize the name, but I don't know who that is off the top of my head.
Okay, so he was a famous doctor that was accused of murdering his wife, Marilyn Shepard, in 1954. Um, but it eventually his conviction was overturned, and he was like it, questionably falsely imprisoned. Like it's still kind of I believe the case is still unsolved today, like whether or not he did it. And his this whole murder case inspired The Fugitive, the movie The
Was it
Fugitive.
a show or a movie?
Both, actually.
Okay. Oh.
But the movie, I believe, has Harrison Ford in it. Um,
Yeah, okay,
like
I'm looking at him right now. Is this the same as the 4-Day Bride or whatever?
um,
No, I don't think so. Never mind.
I'm not sure.
Never mind.
Another,
Interesting. Well,
yeah.
he got married. He got married twice after that. It looks like.
Hmm. So, um, okay. Anyway, there was another notable inmate was Harry Pierpont, and he was a notorious gangster and associate of John Dillinger. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Dillinger Gang.
Yes,
Okay,
vaguely.
I had not, so I just want to give a quick background of
Or
them.
maybe I haven't. I don't know.
They were very active in Ohio in the early 1930s. They were basically famous for robbing banks and jailbreaks and shootouts. So, like, all your classic gangster
Okay.
activities. They pulled off, like, daring heists, whatever, well planned escapes. And then at one point, John Dillinger was imprisoned, and the rest of the gang broke him out of jail.
That's kind of iconic.
It is kind of iconic. And unfortunately, fortunately, I'm not sure. They all met pretty brutal ends. John Dillinger was shot outside of a bank or outside of a theater in Chicago. Harry Pierpont was executed at Ohio State Penitentiary.
Ooh.
And that actually brings us to another famous inmate in Ohio State Penitentiary, Charles Mackley, and he was another member of the Dillinger Gang. He was arrested for multiple bank robberies, as we just said, and he was killed in an attempted prison escape while at Ohio State Penitentiary.
Wow.
Yeah. Another famous person that was imprisoned here was James W. Brown. He was a convicted murderer and one of the last prisoners to be executed here, and he was executed via Old Sparky in the 1960s. So very
Yikes.
yeah, I know.
One of the last ones to even go in the electric chair.
What'd you say?
I said he was probably one of the only ones or one of the last ones to go in the electric chair.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy to think about, like, that was like 60 years ago, and it's such like a brutal form, like a brutal way to go. Anyway, most of the other criminals there were like Prohibition era criminals, mafia people, gangsters, and like career criminals. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of paranormal activity here. There's I'm,
A breeding ground.
Yeah, for bad energy. So
Yeah. Weird vibes.
yeah, speaking of weird vibes, there is a lot of like paranormal activity in the cell blocks that the 1930 fire occurred in. Witnesses claim to hear like the screams of prisoners being burned alive, which is
Don't love that.
No, definitely. And they claim to see apparitions of charred figures.
Disturbing.
I should mention too that the Ohio State Penitentiary is not still standing, which I believe is how the Paranormal Museum got one of the doors, was when it was demolished.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
Like, here, take this.
we don't have anything to do with it. Scrap metal bin is full. And a lot of the EVPs, so the electronic voice phenomena, we've talked about those before, have recordings saying like "help me" or like "let me out of my cell" stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's kind of
It's
sad slash
so
scary.
sad. Yeah, that one gave me chills actually. Um, then there's a ghost referred to as the angry inmate, and his story was that he was a prisoner at the penitentiary who was supposedly beaten to death by guards, and so his cell is like a hotspot for activity. The door will slam shut or would slam shut on its own, and objects in the cell would move around. Visitors near the cell would get pushed suddenly, and there was a report of a shadow figure outside his shell.
Yeah,
Outside his cell.
he sounds a little angry, I'm not gonna lie.
Oof. I know. Well, honestly, I would be too if I was.
I would be, yeah, can you blame him?
I really can't. Um,
Poor
then
guy.
Harry Pierpont, one of the Dillinger guys,
HP.
yeah, the one that was executed via Old Sparky. Oh, he
Yeah.
was also executed by Old Sparky in 1934. His spirit is said to haunt the execution chamber.
Ooh.
Yeah, really freaky, like cold spots being watched, and then also people hear like maniacal laughter down in the execution chamber.
Okay. That's not necessary, I don't think.
Absolutely hate it. Down in the solitary confinement block, which it was again known for like extreme punishment, there's a lot of shadow figures.
Ooh.
And EVPs recorded saying no escape and still here.
Ooh.
I know, I hate it.
Very spooky. Very, very okay. Yeah, this is I guess it's good that it's demolished because this is not one I would necessarily want to visit.
No, I agree. So then there's wailing throughout cell blocks, like echoing, moaning and crying, sudden chills and dizziness, and people reportedly pass out at like a higher frequency when they stand where Old Sparky used to be.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Very weird.
Don't let
Misty
me get any really
apparitions.
sparky.
Some hear the cry of a child, which is kind of strange because it was adults only. But some people think that it predates the prison's construction. That could be like the land. It could be like a child attached to the land that the prison was built on. The prison was demolished in 1998, and people still report experiencing like strange encounters and phenomena on like the land that now exists there.
I can yeah. If they built like an apartment building on that or something, I would be a little bit like, ooh.
No, I think it's like a public it's like a public land now. Hold on. I have it in my notes somewhere what it became.
If it was like a park, I feel like that would be a good solution. Because then you could bring the good vibes, I don't know.
Now the site of the Arena District.
I don't know what that means. Maybe like a shopping center? Which, if so, that's hilarious.
Let me see. Oh, there's apartments there.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Actually, this looks like a really fun place to go, I'm not gonna lie. They've got like there's like an outdoor amphitheater for concerts, restaurants, a Buca de Beppo.
Oh, there's a Buca de Beppo? Okay, I'm starting to like this place.
Like work area, like offices and stuff. Like low-key, this kind of looks fire, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, I kind of like that. I'm glad that they did something nice with it instead of just like letting it sit there empty.
Ooh, sports venues too.
Jeez, this is
breweries.
Ohio is the place to be, I guess.
Clearly. All right, well, I'm glad that there's a happy ending for that land, but
yeah.
Bro, they're like sitting in the brewery and they're like, I feel
a presence.
Anyway, actually, a haunted brewery is something that I would definitely go to.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, don't even talk about that too much because I don't want anyone to steal that idea.
Trademark. Copyright, trademark.
Later. Thank you. We will sue.
We will. We have it on record that we thought of that first. Okay, so then moving into the main area of, now that aside, moving into the main area of the museum, there's historical artifacts, some from Andrew Jackson. There's a feature on the Bell Witch, which obviously you knew that we love to see. There's some stuff from Lincoln. There's some haunted paintings also hung up on the walls, and I have to say there was one painting of the Annabelle, like the real life Annabelle doll, that gave me the chills. Like I told Sam, have you guys seen those like TikTok comments that are like, I'm sorry for looking in your eyes without permission?
And yes, I have. I'll
I
answer
had
for the
to
people.
I had to like say that out loud after I looked at that painting. It like freaked me out.
Yeah.
She really was doing a number on me. There was like one of those ventriloquist dummy dolls. He was really freaky.
Yeah. He had a little like pet monkey on his shoulder or something.
Yes. There was like a feature on the Titanic. Um,
Oh, I don't even think I saw that.
yeah, something like it was in like the glass display cases. Some furniture from like pre-revolutionary or from pre-Civil War times. Uh, and like there was like a Scrabble set that was said to have some sort of presence attached to it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was pretty cool. That was a good story.
I liked that one too. And Sam's now going to tell us about like there were a couple of artifacts that were linked to specific spirits known as women in white.
Yes.
All right.
So, yeah, next we're going to talk about the women in white, just the phenomenon in general, and then also I'll very briefly discuss the objects we saw that were connected to two of these women in white. So, women in white, they're also known as white lady ghosts, but I'm going to call them women in white because otherwise it sounds like we're just talking about random white ladies.
AKA you and me.
What do you say?
AKA you and me.
Yeah, exactly. So we could be talking about anyone. So, women in white, they're a legend that's found in folklore across a ton of different cultures, which I always think that's super interesting when there's some sort of lore that's like it is like throughout all these different like continents and countries and everything. Kind of like dragons. I'm like, it's
Yeah,
cool
I
that
love that. I
yeah,
love
I'm like it's
it.
like wow, like is there some like truth behind it? So women in white are usually described as female apparitions, of course, dressed in white. Usually they're in like a long, flowing white gown. Um, I feel like everyone can like picture in their head, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think of the lady from, from Haunted Mansion, the one that like is like axe murdered her
Constance,
husband.
like the
Constance,
bride.
yeah.
Um, this always reminds me of that like John Mulaney skit where he's like talking about his relative that bought him like a 3XL like Billabong t-shirt, and he's like, was my house haunted by a Victorian child, or was it just me going to bed in my sleep shirt? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that
We've
one.
all it's definitely like a very pot like everyone has like can picture it in their mind's eye, I
Oh,
think.
totally.
It's
Totally.
very prominent throughout pop culture. Um the women in white, they're often associated with loss, betrayal, tragedy, not great things. But a lot of the times they have tragic deaths. For example, they're the ghosts of women who died from murder, from suicide, from heartbreak. Um,
Oh,
our tour guide was telling us that a lot of the times it's like the women in white are either killed or they die of other causes right before like something important in their life. For example, like right before they're about to get married or as they're giving birth. So like during or before one of these really big milestones, which then makes them stay back on Earth, or I guess on the in between Earth and the other side, whatever you believe that is, because they feel like they have unfinished business, which is really sad. It's like not even like a fun. It's not even like a fun like spooky haunt. It's just kind of like really sad.
no, that's
Um,
one of the ones that like you're like, oh, like
Sometimes they're searching for like a lost child. Sometimes they're searching for their husband. Apparently, a lot of women in white are also often seen on in castles, on bridges, by lakes, in old mansions. Pretty much like I just feel like it's kind of like your typical when you think of a spooky, old-fashioned ghost female. That's what you're thinking of, right?
yes,
Um,
definitely.
there are a couple of famous women in white legends from around the world. La Llorona
I was
is
gonna
considered to be one
say
of them. Yes.
that's
Which
reminding
I
me
feel
of
like
that.
she's probably the most famous, most well known, at least to me. She's the one that drowned her children, and she roams near bodies of water, and she's always crying and like searching for other children to pull in and drown. Um, and that's from Latin American folklore. There's also the White Lady of Union Cemetery, which is in
I've
Connecticut.
heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yes, she's pretty famous. So she is obviously dressed in white, and she's often seen wandering around the grounds of Union Cemetery, which is in Easton, Connecticut. There's the White Lady of Ballet Drive from the Philippines. Um, she apparently uh appears in front of unsuspecting motorists a lot of the time. Like she like appears and then disappears, or she like causes accidents, which is kind of scary.
That reminds
Um,
me of that what was it called? The like blood cemetery in New
yeah,
Hampshire that we did an
that we
episode on.
talked about, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. You're right. It's very true. And then a fourth one that I think is super interesting, um, is Anne Boleyn. Actually, is
Oh, you're
considered
right.
a white a woman in white, because so obviously she was, you know, executed far before her time. And apparently she's in the Tower of London a lot. People will see her in all white wandering around the Tower of London. And apparently a couple other locations, but the Tower of London is where she is mostly seen, because I
Aw.
believe that's where she was held before she was
Yeah.
executed.
Aw.
Um, so pretty interesting. Um, White ladies are often wait, whatever I say, it just sounds funny. White ladies are often associated with supernatural warnings or unfinished business. Um, and they also can be found in residual hauntings, which we've talked about before, where basically the spirit like relives the tragedy over and over again in like the same area,
Oh.
um, which is really sad. So when MK and I went to the Paranormal Museum, we learned about two different women in white. I won't go into the details on them, but one of them we got to see her death mask, which is basically after a person dies, especially like in the olden days. I'm sure some cultures do it today, but I think it was much more of a widespread thing back in like the Victorian era and before that. So this one lady got has her death mask, and I guess it's like they put plaster. Mary Kate, you might be able to explain it better. Like I don't like, how do they make the mask? Like they make a mold of the face and then they like
Or
pour.
plaster into it.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So that you can like see what the person looked like. And there's also, so that was one of the women in white, and the other one was we actually saw the top of a gravestone. Um and it had her husband's name on it. It did not have her name on it. We don't know if that's because back in the day they like didn't put the women's names on it, or if it was just broken off. But that was, we discussed her too, and both of those stories are really tragic but really fascinating, and hearing their stories is like, it's really sad, but I don't know, it kind of gives you like, I don't know, like it's like they're getting to at least have their story told, which is nice.
Yeah. It's definitely like a nice monument to them. Like if they are going to be stuck in between this life and the next, like at least like as you said, they're going to be remembered and people will know their names, which unfortunately like was not the case most of the time for for women, especially back in that
Yeah,
time period. So,
exactly. Yeah, not even getting their name. We were talking to the tour guide about how it would say on gravestones, honestly, up until like recently, I feel like it would say like, oh, like John Smith and his
wife.
wife.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're not even getting your name on there. I don't know.
And that's like how you'll like that'll outlive obviously you, but like that lasts for a longer time period than like your life. I don't know. That's like the mark that you're guaranteed to make on the world is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And it's like,
So,
wow, you didn't even get to have your name on there. Like, I just think it's unfair. But
and that's why I
anyway,
always like, find like John Doe or like Jane Doe tombstones like so sad.
I know where it says like unknown remains or something.
Yeah. Ugh.
Besides the tomb of the unknown soldier, like that one is sad, but it's like really cool that he got is like, he has a very special grave. I don't know.
And I also like the idea, not to get off on a tangent, but like
No.
if there's a family like missing their loved one, there's always like the small hope that like they could be the unknown soldier.
That's
No
true.
thing.
Yeah, that's very true. Although honestly, like when who like what is the soldier from? Do I maybe I should know that.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with
I
you.
would assume like World War One or two.
Yeah. Let me see.
I'll be embarrassed if I just completely made that up.
It's an unidentified World War One soldier.
Okay.
And unknowns from World War Two and the Korean War and the Vietnam War.
Oh, I this is gonna sound silly, but I didn't know that there was more than one soldier in there.
I didn't either.
Let me look this up real
This
quick.
is a this is a historical podcast
This
after all.
is why
Not to
is it
get off
not
on
letting
a
me type this?
tangent.
Like, do you hear this when I'm trying to type?
Oh yeah.
What the heck? Okay, I can't look it up right now. Anyway, oh, these are all just our musings. The museum was really really interesting. Even if you're not a huge fan of horror or the paranormal, I still think it's worth a day trip, especially if you're in the area because you learn, especially if you choose to learn about the history of things. When you're choosing your tour theme, it's really really cool to learn about the history of all the objects because all the objects, regardless if you believe in like the haunt of it all, they all have really interesting history behind them.
And also, like you can choose to take the crime and punishment, like the true crime tour as well. So definitely like even like you said, even if you're a skeptic, I think both of us are skeptical.
Yes.
Even though we
Always
do have a
skeptic.
paranormal podcast, like I think it's very rare that we come across a like place that's truly like without a doubt has something going on there.
Yes.
But this place was definitely very cool. Like I think Sam was standing in the room and felt like a tap on her shoulder, right?
Yeah, I felt like I definitely felt like a very, very, very light tap. Not so much that I was like, "Oh my God, that was definitely something," but enough that I like turned around and I said to Mary Kate's boyfriend, I was like, did you tap? Did you tap my back?" So that was yeah, that was a little bit freaky.
Yeah, I definitely felt like a weird I got a headache in that room, and then also when we were in the last room, which has a lot of like artifacts or like objects that were used in occult rituals and have definitely some sort of presence tied to them. There's one artifact in there that I really don't want to get into because I don't want to like spoil anything for anyone who's going, but like definitely was like I think the freakiest item that we saw all all tour, uh and it had been used in like some sort of occult ritual.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And it definitely was giving me like a really weird vibe. But like Sam said, we had a blast at this museum. It truly was, you could tell that this was a passion project that was incredibly well executed.
Yeah.
Um, it is worth a visit if you're in the area, even if you're not in the area. Um, Definitely make a trip out to Asbury Park, maybe go in the summertime so you can enjoy the beach too. But it was pretty cool to do in the off season because we definitely got like a lot of one-on-one interactions with the host and employees in the shop. And I believe that this museum is also responsible for hosting the annual like Jersey Devil Festival.
Yeah.
So if you want to see Sam and I, pop out to the Jersey Devil Festival May 3rd, I believe it is. So
Mark your calendar,
mark
please,
your
right
calendar
now.
and start planning your trip to Jersey. But thank you to the Paranormal Museum in Asbury Park. It was such a fun time. We had a blast.
We did.
It's it really is for everyone, regardless whether you believe fully or not. Even just go for the history and fun gift store.
And for the gift shop at the end.
It was really fun. I got my Fortune read by Zoltar, which was sick.
Yes.
And he told me to reevaluate the people in my life.
Yeah,
So
he said you've been feeling uninspired or like unimpressed by the people in your life.
I'm gonna reevaluate who I'm hosting a podcast with.
Oh,
Just kidding.
Zach, do you have anything to add about your experience at the Paranormal Podcast? Oh my God, Paranormal Museum.
I happened to be passing by at the right time with Brody.
You did.
No, it was really good. Fun place, a lot of cool items that are haunted. It was good. I definitely do it again and do one of the other tours.
All right, without giving
Yeah.
a story away, like don't say the story behind the artifact, but like what did you think was like the weirdest thing that we saw?
The weirdest thing I did not like. There was like a doll of a nun or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you did not. You definitely did not like that.
As
Yeah.
soon as I walked up the stairs, I looked to it. I was like, "That's creepy." I was like, "We'll probably talk about that." I did not like it.
That was
That was my
freaky.
least favorite.
Fair enough. I
Fair enough.
did not like that one. Freaky. But again, thank you to Kathy Kelly, thank you to our tour guide, Arun. We had a blast, and thanks for giving us some inspiration for our podcast episode.
See you at the paranormal. Why do I keep saying paranormal? See you at the Jersey Devil Festival.
Trust we will be back.
Trust. And thank you to you guys for listening. We really appreciate
Everything. We really appreciate everything. If you're not following us on social media, we appreciate you slightly less.
Yeah.
But
True.
we are on Instagram, Facebook. Everything is under East Coast Haunts. Oh, we're on TikTok, and we're gonna try to make a little TikTok about our time there. So if you want to see these beautiful faces that go with these beautiful voices, hit follow.
Smash that follow button.
All right, on that note, we're just two ghouls creeping over you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.